Hello, Jenny. Are you ready to talk about another new moon?
Indeed, I am, Laurie.
Okay. So before we jump right into that, I just want to say, for all of you that are watching, you can find Jenny at hiddenpathastrology.com. You can find me at astrolore.org. We both teach astrology. We both do consultations. I do recorded readings as well. So please check out our websites. Also, please like and share and follow us here on YouTube or wherever it is that you're watching this. And now, with that all out of the way, let's talk about this new moon. It is a fascinating new moon. So before we talk about this exact new moon, let's talk about the cycle of the moon itself. The lunar cycle that we talk about and people track and follow is really all about the relationship between the sun and the moon. So when we're talking about a new moon, we're talking about a period of time when the moon is right in between us and the sun. That's why it's dark and you can't see the moon at night. After that new moon, that moment when it's right in between, the moon grows a little bit each day as it pulls away from the sun. And a week later, we come to the first quarter moon. A week following that, we come to the full moon. A week following that, we come to the third quarter moon, and then we start the process all over again. Do you want to take just a minute, Jenny, and talk about how that correlates to the plant cycle? Would that be helpful?
Yeah, I think that sounds good. It is always helpful to kind of incorporate that because it gives you a visual idea of what it looks like. So at the new moon, we're talking about the seed going into the soil. And then it starts to sprout and grow, and that brings you to the first quarter phase where it's broken up through the soil and it's reaching towards the light and it's growing with furious speed. By the time we get to the full moon, the plant is beginning to flower. So the full moon is the bloom, right when the petals open. And then after that, it starts developing the fruit through the disseminating phase. And then at the third quarter or also the last quarter phase, either way, you get the point where you've taken the fruit down off the harvest, you've eaten the fruit, the seeds are going to get disseminated, and now everything that's left on that plant is going to perish and die and go into compost. And as all those nutrients, nothing gets wasted. It goes into the next cycle. And I always think that that darker part of the cycle is the one that's harder for us in our bright, shiny, especially American society to discuss, but it's a very important part of the cycle. So that's
and as we're making this video right now, that's the part of the cycle we're in, the very darkest time right before the new moon.
Yeah, so it's our job, hopefully, to help in put nurturing things into the soil so that our new moon cycle will be good. And I just want to add one more thing here, which is simply that some of us will feel this new moon very powerfully, and some of us maybe not quite as much. And that all depends on your own personal astrology chart, your natal chart. And so you'll have to think about how it's impacting you. And we'll talk more about that at the end.
Yes. Okay. So the next thing we're going to talk about is the sign of Pisces, because that's where this new moon is happening. And Pisces is the mutable water sign. It's a difficult, one of the more challenging signs to talk about because it's, you think about those two fish swimming in opposite directions. That's one of the symbols for Pisces. You try to grab hold of that and it just slithers between your fingers. And it's hard to talk about Pisces because it's intangible. Pisces is the sign of intangibility. Try to grab hold of it, it slips between your fingers. What do you have to say about Pisces?
Yeah, I think you're tackling it the right way. I mean, the first thing is very elusive. It's hard to get a grip on. So what you're saying. But it also is completely expansive and visionary and is a big imagination piece. There's a lot about idealism with Pisces. I also like to kind of think of it as like the cosmic spa. Like Pisces is a really, really good time to go inwards and get rest and to calm your nervous system down. So it's very yin. It is a very yin, inward, receptive sign. And it can also be completely mystical. So
Right.
a lot going on there.
I always think of, you know, when the moon's in Pisces, it's really, yeah, it's a great time to take a nap. It's a great time for self-care. It's a great time to connect with your more mystical side. It's a great time for poetry or music or, you know, meditation, all those things that kind of release us from the bounds of reality in
Yeah,
some way. Yeah.
that's good.
Yeah. We're
Yeah.
always, you know, there's always an element of looking for an escape.
Oh, yeah.
And the healthy escapes are the mystical side, the imagination, the poetry, the music. You know, if you go in the wrong direction, you get into all the issues around addiction and drugs and real layers of suffering.
Yeah.
Which, you know, I just want to add too, on that level, the purpose of suffering is compassion. And that also is a huge component of Pisces.
Oh, I'm so glad you mentioned that, because I was like, that's the missing one, that component of compassion and forgiveness, being able to work with those things. Yeah. But I think you're absolutely right. And I think in the sense that it gives you this opportunity to dream big with Pisces, and it can take you to these transcendent states. But I think the real question is around, if you're trying to run away from things in your life and you're trying to just get away from everything, that becomes the escapism. And that is definitely the route to addiction. But like you're saying, I mean, there's the other end of it, where if you can get into this Piscean energy, go inwards, and you can rise above a lot of what's happening right now. And it gives you this broader, bigger view that can help give you a sense of hope, even in these really hard times. And this particular chart, this particular new moon,
wild.
It's a potent, it's got a lot going on. It's a potent thing. So we're going to talk more about that. But I feel like right now, especially, is really important time to kind of think about those transcendent things. So,
yeah. And I just want to add that one thing, it's been so fascinating over the years, learning to incorporate the traditional rulers along with the modern rulers. And as I hear you talk about Pisces, I hear that Jupiter has really come into the equation. And I think that just really fills out Pisces in a different way. It's got that expansive quality as well as the mystical quality. And it's
agreed.
Lovely to bring that in.
Right, let's share this tricky little chart.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Okay, so here we go. And I think right out of the gate, anyone who's looking at this is going to be like, wow, that's a lot of Pisces. And wow, there's a whole cluster of things over in one part of the chart.
Right.
First thing.
And these, Jupiter, Sun, and Moon. So there's the Sun and Moon, the conjunction itself. But we cannot look at that conjunction without seeing that Jupiter is right there with it.
Yeah. So straight out of the... Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Laurie.
I was just going to say that, given that Jupiter is one of the rulers of Pisces, that it's a sweet spot. That is a really sweet spot right now. Wherever you have Pisces in your chart, there's a little sweet spot there. Yeah,
and from the astrology point of view too, the sun and the moon are moving rapidly towards that Jupiter. So I feel like Jupiter's kind of opening the door and welcoming the two luminaries, the sun and the moon, and saying, yeah, okay, come into Pisces, come into my realm, come into this unbounded, imaginative place and consider the possibilities. So it really is a place of broad possibility. So,
and broad levels of opening to compassion.
Oh,
that's really important right now.
Yeah, you talked earlier about, before we started filming, about the opening of the heart, and that this is very much about that opening of the heart.
Yeah.
And opening to the wisdom of being really completely open to others and vulnerable, and willing to be in that.
Thank you for bringing that. Vulnerable part is really important there as well.
And I think this speaks to, well, where to go next.
Yeah.
Because I was going to say, there's also, so you have this dreamy, expansive thing. You also have Neptune still in Pisces. It's been in Pisces for quite a time. I think since 2011, I want to say, something like that. And it really is just this broad opening part. But then there's a lot of very precise, sharp angles in this chart too that kind of bring in this other component.
Is this what you want to talk about next? Or this?
Yeah,
there is so much.
Yeah. Well, let's go with the that Capricorn cluster, like what we have in this chart. It's so interesting. So you have all that dreamy Pisces, and then you've got Mars and Venus and Pluto very, very tightly together, all in the same degree, 27 degrees.
Wow. That's amazing.
And it's not only is it interesting in itself that you have this cluster, but you also have to think about recently Mars passed Venus, which is very unusual because Venus typically moves faster than Mars. But Venus is coming out of her retrograde station, so she's moving a bit slower. So Mars actually passed her, and now she's getting ready to pass Mars. So what you have is this sort of, I don't know, this like DNA pattern of like crisscrossing with each other and weaving that into this transformative vibe of Pluto.
Yeah.
It's powerful.
It is very powerful. Yeah, you don't see that. I mean, Venus and Mars just conjuncted fairly recently. I don't have the dates in front of me right now, but normally Venus and Mars meet once a year as Venus goes past Mars because, like you said, Venus is moving faster than Mars. And with this little back and forth thing, it brings up a lot of issues around, I always have this thought in my head with Mars and Venus when they come together, that Mars is energizing Venus and Venus is softening Mars. Why don't you talk about some of how you see that? 'Cause your thoughts on this are very interesting.
Well, I've just been trying to tune into just the whole, I mean, there's so much going on with gender equity right now. And this also talks about gender fluidity and on another level, just quite simply the balance of what we consider to be masculine traits and feminine traits within each of us. And that every single human holds a balance of these energies, which are essentially the very active component, the going out in the world and making something of yourself, of taking a stance, and then versus the contemplative inner receptive energies, which are more about your value system and taking time to kind of have some solitude and go within. And we're really all just a mix of these things. And in our culture, I think we've gotten very confused about, I don't know, for many thousands of years, really, about that particular thing, that only men can be active and women can be passive. And that's all just stuff that is just, it's not real.
It's not real. I mean, we all have Mars and we all have Venus in our charts, whether we're, Mars is supposed to be the masculine planet, but every woman on the planet has Mars in her chart. And the same with Venus is supposed to be the feminine planet. Every man has Venus in their chart. We all are a combination of these energies.
Which is one of the great things about astrology, isn't it? It's like that you can look at it that way without having to get into these other debates. It's just very simple on that level.
Right.
And I think what you're also seeing here, I mean, Laurie, what I remember you teaching me a lot about when I was first learning from you was just that Pluto on top of Mars. There's a tremendous amount of potential energy bound up in that. That is a suppression. And so I think there's just some political issues going on right now, which, well, actually, I don't think they're political. They're human rights issues that are going on right now in the United States, for one, that show what this is. This is suppressing these two things and trying to compress them down and essentially creating an explosive combination. Because you can't hold back the future.
Right. And there's Uranus. You can't hold back the future. But, it's interesting. And I want to say, in looking at this, the planets don't make anything happen. They reflect what is happening. And people get very confused about that. I hear a lot, on social media, this planet did this and that caused that. No, it's a reflection. It's like looking in the mirror. And you can see the reflection, like you're talking about these human rights issues around gender and around equality and all that. You can see that reflected there very clearly. You can also see the war in Iraq reflected very clearly. This, you put Mars and Pluto together in Capricorn, we've got intense power dynamics.
In the Ukraine, it's pretty... It's a pretty potent time.
It's pretty potent. I see, the transformation of our world through this war issue going on. And Venus, Venus is trying to soften it, but Venus is tangled right up in that.
Yeah.
All the women and children there in Ukraine are quite tangled up in it.
Yeah. And I think this is just, this is a good symbol for all of this. But I guess we should talk about the next piece there, huh?
Yes, which piece are you looking to talk about? This? Or there's so much. I'm not quite sure where you want to go next.
Well, anyway, I was just going to mention that, even if you're just looking at this by eye, you can see that Mercury and Saturn there together in Aquarius are sitting right between these two clusters. A little bit harder to see just because we're talking about a semi-square pattern and splitting that in two. So it's tougher to see, but it is right in between the two. And so it's basically setting up an equation that's illustrating the potential of what kind of dialogue needs to happen to balance these two energies, right?
Serious humanitarian conversation.
Yeah, in a nutshell.
In a nutshell. You bring those together. Mercury conjuncting Saturn is the beginning of a cycle of bringing a serious topic to the table, and it's in Aquarius, so it's a humanitarian issue.
Yeah. I also think this brings in, because next we will talk about how this is impacting each of us personally. And I like how these two symbols for me bring together a little more of like, what's your role? How do you fit into this? And I think about something about disciplining the mind, practices that enable you to train your mind and to bring you into the present moment so that you can have even-keeled conversations that are looking to the future that can actually uplift us in these really difficult times. I mean, that is kind of what I see in those two symbols. But I love your humanitarian conversations, and they're serious. Yeah. Because that's what's happening right now. And my feeling, when you talk about Pluto, Laurie, you often talk about how it just kind of pulverizes what is not necessary in order to lay out room for new things to take place. And I kind of think that that's what's happening right now. There's these boundaries around how we talk about male and female, and like this whole conversation around toxic masculinity. That's what this is about. And I know it's kind of a catchphrase, but it really is. It's just an out of balance energy.
And that out of balance energy is in these issues around gender and sexuality, as well as war. They're both coming from that same toxic place. And when I say toxic masculinity, I want to be real clear. I'm not saying anything negative about any individual man.
Yeah, agreed.
I love men personally. And, I want to be sure to say that. Yeah,
this refers back to our earlier conversation about the idea that we all carry Mars and Venus energies inside of us. And every person, doesn't matter what gender you have, is carrying that imprint. It is not on one person. You're right.
I know I've got my place of, I have my place of toxic masculinity.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Interesting.
Yeah. And that's how these symbols, we're talking about the bigger picture here, and we're going to bring it down into a little more of the individual picture in just a moment here. But that's exactly the point, that they illustrate these big things, but also these small things in each of us. And now you're bringing the nice shiny, the more
let's put something sweet in here or something. Uranus there in a sextile to the sun, moon, and Jupiter. I just really feel like that is offering an opportunity to do some of that humanitarian, what needs to be done. It's giving us an open door. That Uranus is one of the rulers of the Aquarius. So it's really encouraging us to bring that conversation into a place that is practical and workable. I love that that's there.
Yeah, that's really great. I mean, as you were saying that, Laurie, I was like, just reminded me, like, this is just a simple statement about go out and connect with nature, wherever you are, whatever's happening, because that is our heritage, our connection with nature. Because I was reading something about, even though we live in a modern technological world, we all developed over thousands and thousands of years in nature, in
Right.
the natural balance of
Right.
Earth. So even though we've changed it up in the last 100 years or so, it doesn't matter. We were still formed that way. So going out and connecting to nature, I think that's the most powerful message in this chart.
Right. Right. Yeah. It's fascinating. Indeed. Okay. What else do we want to say about this? Do you want to talk about that? That little piece right there?
Which one?
This one.
Okay. Yeah. This, like the semi-square itself.
Yeah.
Good idea.
Yeah.
We'll start probably.
Usually we stick pretty close to the 5 major aspects, but with this chart, it is so exact. That semi-square is so exact that you kind of can't quite ignore it.
Yeah, and exactly, because if you look in the little box down here, you can see it's 0 degrees. I mean, it is a 0 degree.
Right.
It's a very exact. And yeah, thank you for saying that way, because we kind of glossed over the semi-square. I mean, a semi-square is 45 degrees. Obviously it's half of a 90-degree square. And it's kind of like, it operates like a weaker square. It's still the same stress, the same impetus to growth, the same kind of demands being placed on it. They're just maybe not quite as strong as you would see in a square aspect.
Right.
But this is undeniable to have that cluster exactly sextile the sun and moon.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's pretty simple, really, to think about it. It's like there is this struggle going on, this intense power dynamic that is at not quite the strength of the cross purposes of a square, but it is pressing against that idealistic opening.
Yeah, it's kind of like the Capricorn is reality and Pisces is the dream world.
Okay, are we ready to talk about those individual pieces, Jennie?
I think so. I think we've yammered on about many of the other things. So.
We have indeed. It's fun. I love going over this.
It is an interesting one. So yeah.
So for those of you that have Aries rising, this is going to fall in your 12th house. And the 12th house is really the area of, people talk about it as the hidden house. It's sort of your internal unconscious understanding of the world. So this is the area of your life where you're going to be planting that metaphorical seed to, I was thinking of it as just planting a seed for inner compassion for your own inner self.
I like that. That's really sweet, Lord. Yeah, because we often focus on selfless service to others and so on. But you're reminding me of sometimes if you're struggling and you have really intense things going on, just that simple act of helping someone else, it does lift you beyond. Even if it's like, I remember one time of like shoveling somebody's driveway from snow and just like having a really uplifting experience. So.
Yeah, I mean, it is, that inner self that is connected to others. I mean, that's that whole thing of, you have to have compassion for yourself in order to for others. Yeah.
Nice.
So now what if we have Taurus rising? Where's that?
Taurus rising, this brings this large number of Pisces planets into your 11th house of groups and community. And I was thinking about, if you have Taurus rising, this is kind of where, who are the mystics in your life? Like, where's that group of people that are like like-minded souls that really support your deeper, the deeper sense of yourself? Like, who are those people that you can, talk about going on some mystic journey with? That's the 11th house. So
that's awesome. Yeah. Increasing compassion toward community, building a community of compassionate connection. You need to remember with this, wherever this new moon is falling, that house always holds Pisces in your chart. So it's a place where you connect with that level of sensitivity at all times. So then if you've got Gemini rising, it's falling in your 10th house. And let's hope that there's some space in your career where you really are able to express sensitivity and compassion to others, and planting a metaphorical seed here in this area to bring more of that, compassion through your vocational path.
Nice. Yeah, awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you summed it up.
Okay.
So Cancer rising, this is falling in the 9th house, which is your worldview, and how you just how you were able to elevate beyond your own. I guess it's just how you open your mind is the way I want to say it. And I also just think wherever you have Pisces, this is where you have a sensitivity. So this is a doorway. This, in any place is a doorway, but in particular with a Cancer rising, this is a doorway into your profound wisdom. This is how you gain perspective and open your mind, is through finding that sense of quiet and restoration in cultivating your worldview.
That's lovely. I like that. Okay, so now if you have Leo rising, this is going to fall in your 8th house. The 8th house is a challenging house. To me, I think of the 8th house as the place where we really have to grapple with our understanding of other people's values, other people's issues. And so this is an area where you have a lot of sensitivity. And right now, with that gathering of planets in that house, you really want to think about planting a seed of increasing your ability to meet people in a place of understanding and a softer place. Yeah, not being judgmental. And with that gathering there, it's easier to do right now.
Yeah, that's
Pay attention
interesting.
to it. You know, if you find yourself feeling like you're really suffering in that area, just flip that switch to compassion.
Oh, that's nice. I like that. Yeah, I think I was just thinking it's interesting how someone with Leo rising, so that flamboyance of Leo rising would just have this real sensitivity around other people's, values and opinions and so on. I just thought that was interesting.
That's really interesting, actually. I'm really glad you said that, because yeah, that is interesting, because you don't think of Leo as, Leo's so fiery, but there's such a deep insecurity in Leo as well that people don't talk a whole lot about.
Yeah, it's thinking about a couple of people I know with Leo rising and strong Pisces components, and it's a pretty cool combo. The combo of the potential healer, if you can overcome that. But
that's awesome.
Anyway, I'm rattling on. So if you have Virgo rising, this is bringing all of that sensitive Piscean energy into your 7th house of partnerships. So this is a real sensitivity in your partnerships, and you can really create a very profound connection with those you love with this time period.
That's lovely. Okay. I don't have anything to add to it. So we'll go right on to the Libra rising. So this new moon is falling in your 6th house. And the 6th house is the area of habits and routines that support your health, basically. So you want to plant a metaphorical seed to really soften and be more sensitive, develop a sensitivity and a compassion to your own ability to maintain your health or your health practices. It clearly would be an ideal time to begin a meditation practice or anything along those lines. Any kind of mystical way of dealing with your own health issues.
Nice. Great. I don't have anything to add to that either. So
all right.
It's short and sweet today, Lori. So if you have Scorpio rising, this is going to fall into your 5th house. So this is the way that you give love to other people. So when you have Pisces in your 5th house, you have a profound capacity for offering deep, unconditional love that just kind of transcends anything in the day-to-day. So that's
especially right now.
Yes, especially right now. You got it. Yeah. And there's something about that sensitivity, but also it's a magical Pisces energy that you could just pour into creative projects as well.
Yes.
This is a really, really good time if you have this set up you need to do some art. So whatever that is.
That's so interesting. I just last week was meeting with a client who has Scorpio rising. So this is in their 5th house, and she's currently pregnant. And it's like, you know, her whole self is going into creating this beautiful kind of, you know, mystical world to welcome her child into. I think it's interesting to see that.
Yeah. Cool.
So then with Sagittarius rising, if you have Sagittarius rising, this is falling in your 4th house, which is the area of home and family. You know, really understanding the depth of sensitivity that you have in that area. Your family, your home is such an area that at this point in time, you can really develop a lot of compassion for the members of your family. You're really deepening your sensitivity around your whole ancestral line.
Awesome. That's well put. Lovely.
Thank you.
So with Capricorn.
Oh, wait. Oh, okay. Yep.
Okay. With Capricorn, we are looking at your 3rd house. So this is the 3rd house is the house of siblings. It's the house of communication. It's the area of life where you're kind of going about your day to day, going through your neighborhood. You know, it's that whole, I think last time we talked about where you catch the bus. That is that kind of, you go to the grocery store, those kinds of things. And yet here you're bringing this transcendent idealism, this wisdom to this funny, like 3rd house place. And so, I mean, I think this is just that realizing that this divine sense lives in you all the time. And even when you're washing the dishes, it makes me think of Thich Nhat Hanh and just how he's saying, you know, when you're washing the dishes, you're washing the dishes. You know, when you're passing your neighbor and you're saying hello, you're fully present to that neighbor and saying hello. I think I really like that statement.
The importance of that area of our lives. I mean, we just kind of breeze through it like it's nothing. But yeah, at this time, really developing that inner sensitivity to how you can open your heart and mind in those moments. That's awesome.
When you're saying that, it made me just think of the 3rd house is really the fabric of our lives. This is where we spend so much of our time, and it's easy to overlook. But you can weave magic into the fabric. So,
yeah, especially if you have Capricorn rising.
Yes,
you've got magic in that area.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so then if you've got Aquarius rising, this is falling in your 2nd house, which is, you know, it's the house of money, resources, but really it's the house of your self-worth. What holds your self-worth? And this is a time to really increase your sensitivity in how you invest your resources, how you build your self-worth through a deep, sensitive understanding of how you utilize your resources. What else do you want to add to that? That needs a little more.
I was just thinking about, well, the 2nd house also is like your livelihood. I've been reading a lot about that in Demetra George's book. And so it really is the sense of you are a resource to yourself and to others, and that you must take care of that resource. And with Pisces there, you're going to need to make sure that you restore this area, that you take time to rejuvenate, and that you really do take a time out. Extra important with Aquarius rising.
Oh, I think that's really good. I like that. Yeah, taking the time out to value your own self-worth.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, I think it's good. And finally, with Pisces, of course, this is falling in the most powerful house in the chart, which is your 1st house. So this is, I mean, you're kind of embodying these Piscean ideals when you have Pisces rising, and this is speaking to the direction of your life being a somewhat Pisces direction. So you are a person working with ideals and dreams. And so this is a very important time. It's a little bit like the one before, where you just got to take retreat time. With anybody with Pisces rising, you have an open portal, a gate that is profoundly sensitive to all of the things around you. And so it is extra important that with you have that you know how to manage that, and you know how to take time in solitude, in self-compassion.
Yeah. Really planting a seed for self-compassion. I think that's really the key there for people with Pisces rising.
Yeah.
Beautiful. All
So,
right.
Great. I was just thinking too, if you want to find out more, you could look at our Pisces Sun video we put out a little while ago, because we went a little deeper and we also mentioned the Capricorn pieces in that. So if you want to get more information about your rising sign, check out our video on that. So.
Right. Okay. Very good. I think we can wrap this up, and
Yeah.
I hope everyone has a wonderful new moon. Do some sort of a ritual to plant that seed for yourself now that you know exactly where it goes. And we will talk to you in 2 weeks at the full moon.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks.
you.